Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Dorien Morin-van.
Hello, everybody. I am here, your host, Dorien Morin-van, with another episode of Strategy Talks. I'm so glad you're here. We are going to talk about mind mapping your goals today. But before we go there and before I introduce you to our guests, I just want to make sure to welcome all of those who are here live with us, whether you are on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, or LinkedIn. I also want to welcome those who might watch this and catch it on the replay. Put hashtag replay in the comments so both my guests and I can see that you're watching the replay. And last but not least, a special shout out to those of you who listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast. So before we go and meet Carol Clegg, I want to do a shout out to our sponsor, Social Insider. They are the intuitive dashboard for social media analytics, reporting, and competitors analysis for brands and agencies. If you need data, you need Social Insider. So without much further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my guest today. Hi, Carol. How are you?
Hi, Dorien. I am well, thank you. This is so exciting because I'm just excited. We're talking about a subject that I use in so many different applications. So lovely to be here.
Yes, and thank you for being on my show. You and I had scheduled this show last year. You travel a lot, so we just rescheduled for 2023. Not a big deal. I'm excited. We're finally here. We're going to talk about mind mapping your goals. But before we do, let me just tell everybody who you are. You are born and raised in one of the beautiful cities of the world, Cape Town, South Africa, and your family decided to explore new horizons. And in 1993, you went to the U.S. via the Caribbean, right?
You
homeschooled kids, and then after they graduated, you started your own business, very similar to how I started. I started when my youngest was in kindergarten, but I've also homeschooled my kids for a little bit, and also started when my kids, really grew my business once they were young adults. You've always been passionate about sharing what people do. And then discovered virtual assistants. That's awesome. You started your business, Classic Exec Marketing, in 2009. And then after a mastermind women retreat in Portugal, which sounds interesting, in 2018, creative juices were bubbling and you added coaching to women starting and growing their solopreneur business, which is where I am, right? I'm doing similar things, helping people, not with coaching and starting their business, but with coaching of social media. So I think we have a lot of things to talk about. So let's get started with mind mapping.
All right. I know it kind of sounds so daunting because I know that there are apps and there are all sorts of things out there, and you look at them and they're just too complicated. And you go, this mind mapping is, I need to be a mathematician to do mind mapping. But let's start off with the tools that you need, and I'll come back to what is mind mapping. Just take a sketchbook, just a regular sketchbook, which is wonderful, full of blank pages, and that is your mind mapping book because it's something that you can use on a daily basis. But what is mind mapping? I like to think of it as a note-taking tool.
Okay.
So, you've got a million ideas, but this is a note-taking tool, which I think obviously might appeal to the right brain and the whiteboard type of thing, is that you can just simply insert additional branches out of that main idea. So you're starting with the main idea and you're brain dumping, but it's so flexible because your brain, it allows you to see new associations as you put down the next idea and the next idea, something else spins off that, but you're just dumping that all down as opposed to holding it in your brain. And it gives you the freedom to just wander and explore and get creative with, what does that look like? What could be in my way? What would help me make this happen? And then for the creatives, you get into color and shapes and fancy pens
Okay.
So there's just so much more. But to me, it's really simple. And I mean, I know that we're not doing a visual, but I have my sketchbook right here. And
Show us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so-
I'd love to see it. There are people that are here live watching. So you have circles and then you have arrows and you write things down and they are all connected. So it's
this is a simple one. So this
creating
is
a model. You're creating a model of what you want.
That is a little more complicated if we have a look at that one. So
Yeah.
I've got a center idea. So, it can be linear with 3 things at the top. Lots of people seem to always talk in threes. The threes always come up.
Yes.
Whether it's 3 things to do or whatever. So that one is linear. But the other way to do it is to put a center circle, pop your main idea into that center circle, and then branch out from that. So if it's going to be goals that we're talking about, yes, it is personal goals, business goals, family goals, self-care goals. They could all come off that center line with new circles.
Okay.
Then,
so all the goals are, and that was going to be one of my questions, are all the, when we're talking about mind mapping your business goals, it does include your personal goals. And you just mentioned wellness and maybe even budgetary goals, all of that.
Absolutely. Because, they all interweave with each other. I think we make the mistake if we separate ourselves from our business goals. I mean, most of us are working from home. Perhaps we're getting into a co-working space now and then to get a little bit of community, but ultimately we're working from home. And so I think incorporating your self-care goals and your family's routines and goals gives you the freedom to know where to be more strategic with your own goals for your business.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's back up for just 1 second before we explain too much about mind mapping and move forward. But can you tell us what are some of the benefits to doing this versus, sitting down and writing it out or, doing an official business plan? What are some of the benefits for mind mapping?
So I think one of the things is it's a quick process. So, having a quick process and being able to organize your information in these different areas is important. It brings up your creativity, which allows you to explore even more. So it's releasing. It improves, actually, they've shown it to improve learning and memory by working with associative things, so that if you clump them together with things that belong together, it is going to help your learning and your memory. And it's just very concise because you're focusing on keywords. Yes, one can journal. Yes, one can do a business plan, but mind mapping is a lot simpler. So there's less information that you're trying to process. Kind of gives you the bird's eye view of something. So yeah, there's so many benefits. It gives me clarity. So if I start my day, even if I took my 3 things that I wanted to achieve today, so what are my 3 goals today? What could get in the way? When do I want to have it completed by? And I just dump this all down. It just gives me a clear picture.
Okay, so that brings up lots of questions. So you mind map your goals daily? Do you do a yearly goal, a monthly goal? Do you do this for clients? Do you do this for your work? Do you do this? I've got all the questions.
Absolutely. So I absolutely do it with clients. I think it's a fabulous place to start because many times if a client is going to work with us, they're overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. If it be for you with social media, it's like, what platform am I going to show up on? How often am I going to show up there? So if you mind mapped your platforms and you took LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and then dropped the thoughts on branches out of that, and then ask yourself how many times you want to show, so you can really explore for your clients, looking at getting them to just dump their thoughts onto paper. And I know that I'm going to come to this later, is what to do after you've finished mind mapping. And then if you're wanting to launch a new product in your business, you can mind map that, because what is it going to cost you? Is it something that my clients need right now? Is it something I can implement quickly? What do I need? Do I need VA support? Do I need a different platform? Well, what does that platform look like? Is it going to cost me some money? Is there a return on investment? So, but it's just, when you can glance at it, for me, I just love, and you can look at it and it's so clear. If I've got to read paragraphs and try and find everything in my long journaling or my, I'm not saying one doesn't need a business plan. I look at this as being different. It's a starting point.
Okay. And this is the question that I have. This is perfect. You just said what I needed to hear. So I write strategies, and part of writing strategies is doing research, learning more about the business that I'm going to write a strategy for. But mind mapping is categorizing, and correct me if I'm wrong, categorizing the information that you have right now. Right? Because you're not mind mapping something that you need to know about. You're mind mapping what you have, the ideas that you have. You're not mind mapping research just yet, correct?
No, correct. Yeah, because you're going to decide what you want to research when you've started with the mind mapping.
Okay. All right. So mind mapping your goals comes before creating an actual strategy. I just wanted to be clear in my head how to use this. So if I were to do a strategy for a client, we always start with goals, but we could mind map those goals, or I could say to them, write down your goals and what you want to accomplish and what skills and what tools do you have right now to accomplish those goals before we go into the strategy.
And it could be so simple as going goals for 30 days, goals for the quarter, goals for the year, and then bringing out the branches and unpacking those and basically getting down to, and it's because it's so simple. These are one words or 2 or 3 words. And they don't have to be perfect, especially if you're handwriting. As I mentioned in the beginning, there are plenty of apps out there that you can do. You can even make your own mind map on Google on a form if you wanted it to be digital. And that's what I use for my clients is I give them a blank mind map that I've designed on Google, and they can just go into their own and add. So if you want to have a digital, you absolutely can. And then you can share it.
Okay, you can share it with other people. So that gets me to the next question. Have you seen benefits of teams together mind mapping goals or mind mapping a strategy or content ideas, or a team using it to come up with ways to market a product? Or can mind mapping be used for something like that as a team?
Absolutely. I haven't got that personal experience, but I can just visualize it as you're talking to me. So a big whiteboard, some big circles on that whiteboard. You're sitting as a team around that whiteboard, and you're going to put those major focus points in there. People can contribute their ideas. They're going to come out in the branches. You're going to circle little circles underneath the big circle and add those ideas. And then this is where we're going to get is, how do you implement?
Right. So let's talk about that next, because there's, a lot of us, and if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I know you probably have, for every idea you implement, probably have 1,000 ideas of things that you would want to do, or if you're all the time in the world, right? Especially in business, when you offer services or products. We're told to niche down and to offer, this core thing. But we have all these ideas, other ways to make money, other ways to service our clients. So how do we go about that? How do we decide, I guess, once we're mind mapping our goals, how to prioritize? I guess that's a good way to get started.
So this is, to me, if you're doing it on paper in your sketchbook, is where the highlighter comes in. And you take what you've been looking at, you spend some time just pondering and just looking at what you've written down, allow your thought processes to flow, and then highlight what's important. And then that next step is research.
All right. So when you highlight what's important, do you have different colors highlights?
You certainly could. Why not? There's nothing holding you back. It's funny because I've just a slight going off on the side in my Google Drive. I love having different colored folders. So yes, you can absolutely categorize. You could even put your highlight codes at the bottom of the page and go, okay, blue is for business and yellow is for personal. But then you want to really just pick one area within that circle. So if, for instance, I'll give you an example. Clarity is my goal. All right. So what is clarity? What is it going to take for me to get clarity? I'm going to need to journal. I'm going to need to make lists. I'm going to have this idea log that I want to. Well, which ones are important? And then go, okay, for my clarity, my first step is journaling. So then let's get on with it and start the journaling. So I'm talking more in a personal capacity, but if you were in a team capacity and you've got this whiteboard and it's full of circles and full of ideas, you can't unpack it all. So what is the strategic next step that's going to, I guess, address the obstacle? The biggest obstacle is perhaps what you could highlight and go, okay, which is holding us back? What's the first step we need to take? Take that, and then we go into writing down in a linear form on probably a digital document, because if you're sharing and working together, then you're going to want to see, okay, we need to brainstorm this obstacle.
All right. So I have another question. So that's actually perfect. So you do this, you journal, you have this in your book, and you're working on this as an individual, whether it's for your business, your personal goals. But then say you were saying earlier, you can share it with your team, even if you don't work on it as a team, share it. So then you have to translate that into a digital form.
You're recommended.
Right. You're using Google Drive, Google Docs. What other tools that you mentioned when we started out there that can translate what you've done on paper into a digital version?
My favorite, Trello. Absolutely love Trello, and especially from two aspects. One is holding yourself accountable, and now doing accountability coaching that really helps people, but from a team point of view, because you can attach your Google Documents within Trello. So if you have started there, you can now bring it into a Trello board and have your cards for the different projects, bring your team on board and work through the obstacles and the next points. You can put a date on there, you can put a completion, there's a checklist that you can add. So yep, Trello's my go-to for project management.
Okay. And if you're watching this or listening, Trello is a tool. There's a free version. You can use it for anything like goal setting, but also a task management as well. I had a friend who used it to plan out what to pack for all her trips, right? To use the Trello board for that. So mind mapping, all of that is a great way to get started. So after you set goals and you mind map and you have created this digitally and you're sharing it with your team, where is that point of let's get started? The implementation part. What does it take? Does it take mindset? Does it take a coach? Does it take a calendar invite? Does it take a habit? So we want to make sure that everybody's watching and listening can take this to that next level. I think a lot of it, including myself, have created plans, and then you have a plan and it's on paper and it's electronic and it's there. But how do you go from creating these goals and mind mapping it to actually doing the work? What do you recommend? How do you work with your clients? Because I think this is going to be the piece that we're all waiting to hear. Right. How do we do that?
Yeah, so that is the accountability side. And so you've got to commit. And you've got to simplify. You can't do it all. So you've got this gorgeous big mind map with a host of ideas, and you have your Trello board with a whole bunch of things, but we want to just take the next step. And so if that next step is writing your copy for your next post on social media, give yourself a date, a deadline. What does it take? Not just, I'm going to write this post. What does it take? And so, saying it out loud, sometimes it's even just that is, look in the mirror and say, I am going to write this newsletter before Monday. Better to be able to tell somebody, and maybe that's writing it on your whiteboard or putting it on a sticky note, but you have to commit to taking one step, and then the traction gains.
Okay. That's great. And I, as an Agilist, one of the things that we use is not a end date, but also a start date. And that's kind of what you're saying, because it's a lot of times we have deadlines and people hate deadlines and they're looming and people wait. If you set a deadline a week from now, 90% of people will start working on the project the day before because the deadline is looming. But for those of you watching, the agile way is to get started on the project on the day that you have a starting date. Perfect. So if you have a week time, every day you do a piece of the work, and that's when you have the starting. So if you're struggling with this, definitely Carol, I love all your advice on how to get started and accountability to yourself, to your team, to your partners. The tool is only as good as if you're going to use it. So if you have a Trello board, you actually have to go to your Trello board every day. Like I've been there and done that. So making that mental shift to, not just, using mind mapping, but actually doing the work, I think is going to be a huge shift. And that's where, if you can't do that, a coach like you, Carol, can help you move that needle. And I've been there and done that where, I've had some other people tell me, we'll get this done. Right. And to me, it's easier to be accountable to somebody else than be accountable to myself.
Absolutely.
Have you found that? To be true?
Yeah. No, I just even saying something out loud to my husband. I'm going to do this. I've said it. If I say it to my daughter, but if I keep it in my head or I write it down everywhere and I never verbalize it, nobody knows if I don't do it.
Yeah. So here is my today task. I have to call the alarm company, and I, for days and days and days, have been ignoring it. There's something wrong with the system. It has to be reset. And every day at 5, 6 o'clock, when I come out of my office, I hear the beep and I'm like, I forgot again. So today, there's my mind map of what I have to do. I have to call the alarm company. So as soon as we are done, I'm going to do that.
Now, and I'm going to hold you accountable. You're going to send me a message in LinkedIn and tell me that it's done.
That it's done. Exactly. And sometimes it's as easy as that. And along with mind mapping your goals, if you're watching this, finding a mastermind, finding an accountability partner, finding other people that do the same type of work that you do, another solopreneur or another small business owner or somebody in your town or somebody in your network that you can help with. And if you don't have somebody like that, reach out to Carol. So Carol, where can people find you? Where are you most active? How can they connect with you? And let's talk about that, because there's going to be people sitting here going, I need a Carol in my life. So how can they connect with you?
Thanks, Dorien. Really simple. My website is my name. So it's Carol Clegg. It's CLEGG on the end. And LinkedIn is where I hang out. I have a community group there where I love to support other women and have resources available and get them to connect. So I have a group on LinkedIn. I'd love to find you there. And then you'll find me on Instagram.
Okay,
so
wonderful.
Carol Clegg Coaching. And this has been an awesome opportunity. And everybody get out there and just give mind mapping a try. You don't need fancy tools and it doesn't cost you money.
No. So all of us, we're going to go out and get a sketchbook, right? Even the grocery stores carry those, guys. Get a set of fancy pencils or pens or crayons. Yeah, right. She's holding up a sketchbook right now. That's exactly. I have a son who loves to draw, so I buy those periodically. I know that the grocery store carries them right there in the supplies, or a CVS or, a pharmacy. So get yourself a sketchbook. Go start working with that. And I know from experience, Carol, and you've said this before, that getting the ideas out of your head and onto paper also frees your mind. It has allowed me, I actually have paper next to my bed, and I don't know if you do this, but when I go lay down, it's when I have all these ideas and all these thoughts. If I write them down on a piece of paper, they're out of my head and I can go to sleep. So here is your free tip for the day. For those of you who have sleepless nights, put the sketchbook next to your bed and then do this journaling, do this mind mapping as you go to sleep and get everything out of your head. Have you ever done that, Carol?
It's wonderful because it just frees you up that you can deal with it tomorrow. To me, go to bed, celebrate what you've done well, dump down the ideas, and then just give your brain a break. It needs it.
It needs it. So that's another benefit to mind mapping, giving your brain a break. So Carol, thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank you to all of you who are here live, watching, listening to Strategy Talks podcast. I'll be back next week with another guest. I appreciate all of you for your time spent with us today. Carol, thank you so much once again for being my guest today. I'll see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.